The other day, the two of us were watching a cop show, and there was a very intense scene where the cops were pinned down in a building with gunmen all over. And my wife is a feeler. And as we were sitting on the couch, I heard this statement. I heard this statement come out of her mouth as she said, "Oh no."
I was really stressed.
And I looked at her and I said, "Babe, I love you, but I don't think you're being entertained at this point. I think you're trying to figure out not how they're going to get out of it, but how we are going to get out of it." Now, why do I tell you this? Number one, to tell you that my wife's a feeler, and she puts herself in the situation of the characters of the story, no matter what we're watching. But the real reason I tell you this is because me, on the other hand, I knew how that story ended. I had read up on the series and I kind of knew how it was going to get figured out. So not only do I not feel the way that she feels, but I also saw it from the end. I knew that regardless of how they figured it out, they were going to figure it out. And as believers, this is the way that we ought to walk through life, knowing that it's gonna work out. You know, we talked about in an earlier episode how the Lord created you for a purpose. In fact, He finished your purpose before He began you. So He figured out a solution, and then He gave you birth in order to begin that solution process. You know, we've spoken the last few weeks about how our desires come from Him. And when we truly get a hold of those desires, it shifts our attitude to an attitude of service because we realize that we've been put here to serve other people.
Yeah.
And that should result in what we're talking about today. You know, one of my favorite quotes said by our pastor is that we were not created to struggle. We were created to solve the problems of a lost and dying world. We're all fashioned after God, and He is the ultimate problem solver. So much so that He put that part of His DNA inside each and every one of us. And we all have a different problem to solve. So you have to figure out, what is your problem to solve? For Jesus, the problem that He was sent to this earth to solve was sin. And just the same, you have a problem to solve, I have a problem to solve. So what is that problem? There's another quote that I love, that God's will, while sovereign, is not unknowable. You know, he wants us to know what problems we're meant to solve even more than we do.
So realizing that you were created by God for a specific assignment is the first step to discovering which problem you were created to solve. So if you have a pen and paper, I'm going to go through the exact steps that you could take to discover that exact problem that you were created to solve. Number 1, seek the Creator diligently. Be consistent about seeking His face, seeking His voice. Purpose is discovered, not created. Since God is your creator, He's the only one who could tell you what your purpose is and what problem He sent you to the earth to solve. So build an intimate relationship with Him through your time in prayer and reading the Bible. Number 2, these are the questions you are going to ask yourself for this step. So the first question you're going to ask yourself is, what am I naturally good at? What problems in the world do I feel drawn to solve? What are the things that you are noticing that maybe nobody else notices? And this is the last question you want to ask yourself for number 2. What do I enjoy that benefits others?
You know, those are great questions. I know for myself personally, the answers to those questions came out of the first step of having that intimacy with God. I looked back on my notes from my devotional time with Him, and I realized that there were themes that kept coming up. What I know to be true now is that, again, He put His desires in me. And as I submitted my heart to Him and His direction, He then turned my heart and my attention, my focus to the people that He's put me here to serve. And the way that I'm supposed to serve them is by solving the biggest problems in their life. And you know, that's what I've given my life to, is to solving other people's problems. And there's nothing more enriching, there's nothing more rewarding, there's nothing that gets my blood pumping more than an NFL football game, more than pickup basketball, more than workout, more than anything else is is serving the people that I'm here to serve at the highest level and doing things for other people that they can't even do for themselves. So we were put here to solve those problems. And that's something that's really crucial as a prerequisite to figuring out the problems that you were meant to solve, is going back to that attitude of service. Like, we were put here to serve other people.
Yeah.
You know, again, we touched on this on an earlier episode, that the prayer of Solomon was, Lord, give me the wisdom to serve the people that you've sent me here to serve in a way that pleases you. And because that request was so good to the Lord, he gave Solomon wisdom, but also gave him riches and fame. So that is such an important thing for us to also settle in our hearts. Like, Lord, I want to serve the people that you put me here to serve. That is such a big focus and mentality shift. The way I see it is, it switches people from being retirement focused to eternity focused. Retirement focused people will answer these questions on, how do I set me up? But eternity focused people see beyond just the next 70, 80 years into eternity on, how can I impact people for that eternity?
Right. Number 3, sometimes others will see potential in you that you might overlook. So pay attention to areas in your life that people may acknowledge are strengths of yours, and maybe even areas where you make a difference in people's lives. Number 4, spend time in self-discovery. Take time to learn yourself, your interests, your values, your personality, maybe some quirks that you have. God created you to be you, and you are unique and you are special. So take the time to learn yourself. Don't overlook that time of self-discovery. A lot of people go through life not knowing who they are. Invest the time in discovering and learning about God's creation, you. So get your eyes off yourself and begin serving by solving the problems of the world around you. Happy fasting.
And God bless.